Hello, Chief Duane. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Doing wonderful. I'm so glad that you can join us today. I know you're incredibly busy. There's been so much going on with the family and the Bruce's Beach case and so much of that. And I actually just want to dive right in because I know that for a lot of people who have been following your family and following this particular case in Los Angeles are very familiar with it. But I'd just like for you to dive in for about maybe 5 minutes or so and tell us the background as to how we got here, how your family's property was taken from you and through eminent domain, and how we are on a verge of something much more positive now.
Okay, well, the Charles and Willa Bruce family, I'm the spokesman and historian for the Bruce diaspora. There are several hundred families that are Bruce's. This particular family is not exactly related to me. I'm extended family to them, but we're still all Bruce's. And my family asked me to step in and help them. And they graciously asked for me to help them too, once they found out what my experience was. In 1912, Charles and Willa Bruce, who are the original owners of the property, bought the property from a realtor in Manhattan Beach. The property at that time was selling for around $50 a
Wow.
lot. They paid $1,200 to get the lot. That's how bad the discrimination was there. It was also a time when Black men could not buy land in Los Angeles as well. So for them to get that lot so that African Americans could get into the water there on the West Coast, there was no place on the entire West Coast where African Americans could get into the water without being harassed. It was
Yes.
actually illegal in a number of places up and down the entire West Coast. So she bought this particular property to give people the opportunity, especially those of us in South Los Angeles, a place to come and enjoy the water and relax and free of harassment. And so they bought this property. They started out as a hot dog stand. Then it grew to a bathhouse where they rented bathing suits and water novelties and things of that nature. Then it became also a restaurant and a dance hall.
Wow.
And then it became a resort in which it was the citadel of all of the entertainment and social events for all of South Los Angeles. So that means all of the politicians, the entertainers from Central Avenue, the gangsters, business owners, the churches. Everybody used Bruce's Beach for their major events, graduations, weddings, you name it, it was there. And so it began to flourish as a very, very lucrative business for them. And also, it, of course, drew a lot of African Americans to a city where they were that was the only area where Blacks were actually accepted or allowed to be. So they started getting a lot of attention, of course, and the racist entities of the Manhattan Beach City Council there at that time decided that they wanted to get rid of the Bruces and move them out of that area so that it would not become a citadel for African Americans. And so they collaborated with the Ku Klux Klan, some
Wow.
other organizations and individuals in the city of Manhattan Beach to harass them for several years. When the harassment and the attacks didn't work, then they decided to condemn the property. In 19, I think it was 24, they finally condemned the property and then took the land or tried to take the land under a false claim of eminent domain because they said that they wanted to build a park there. Um, Incidentally, the park wasn't built till 1950.
Right.
This was, so we're still talking about 25 years after they took the land. The Bruce's they offered them a pittance of money for the two lots. They had two lots, and then they're building in their home there as well. And they decided to fight the eminent domain proceedings, and they asked for $125,000. They wanted $50,000 per lot, and $35,000 per lot, and $50,000 punitive damages for the Manhattan Beach City Council colluding with the police and the Ku Klux Klan to harass them and violate their human rights. They fought them in court for 5 years, from 1924 to 1929. They lost. They also lost their fortune fighting this case. And in 1929, they had to leave Manhattan Beach. Now, the judgment allowed them to move elsewhere. There were other families there as well. The Priolos and a few other families were also there too. The Slaughters. And they all, a couple of them did rebuy property there in Manhattan Beach. The Bruces did not, because they were under threat of bodily harm by the Ku Klux Klan and other organizations there, and the neighbors, if they moved back to Manhattan Beach. So they decided to leave Manhattan Beach in terror and moved to South Los Angeles, where they lived for the next 5 or 6 years until they eventually died from the PTSD from all of this that happened.
Wow, wow, and see, this is the thing that is so, it's so disturbing, because we see this historically happening across the country, particularly with our Black communities and our property and our families. And so, this is an incredible victory. At the same time, we still have to deal with the residue of this. And so, firstly, I want to say how incredibly brave your family is, and how incredibly resilient you are, and how much we appreciate the efforts, because this is going to be incredibly historic for years to come. And wow, I'm just so, from the bottom of my heart, incredibly sorry, because you are our elder, and we deserved better. Your family deserved better. So what I would love to talk about is, now on Wednesday, there's something incredibly historic happening. The goal is for them to return, historically, symbolically, the land to your family. So what does that mean right now for you? What happens next?
Well, it's been a long fight. First, the Manhattan Beach gave the land to the state of California, hoping that would make sure that none of the heirs would ever be able to get the land back. I guess after a few years, the state of California forgot why Manhattan Beach gave them the land. They gave the land to the county of Los Angeles. It's just a small piece of land. The pictures that people are seeing of this big, beautiful green park on the ocean front is not actually the Bruce's Beach land. That land is down on the waterfront, is about an acre, and there's a firehouse, a lifeguard training station there that's owned by the county of Los Angeles. So the county actually owns that one piece of land. The rest of it is the city of Manhattan Beach. So what happened is that after I started raising hell in the media about what had happened to our family, and making people aware of the history of what had happened, along with a young lady named Kavam Ward and an organization called the Anti-Racist Movement, Black Lives Matter and Color of Change picked it up and helped with petitioning and some other demonstrations. And we started moving forward on taking action to make sure that the world knew how our people had been mistreated by these people. So therefore, in the course of doing this, I was asked to step forward, raise some hell, draw some attention to it. And of course, Supervisor Janice Hahn heard about it in the news and reached out to us and said, well, hey, this property that you used to own is on county property, and I'd like to see to it that you get it back. And so we said, well, thank you, because it had been about 2 years into the fight now, about a year into the fight, and we really didn't know how it was going to happen. It was a leap of faith. In fact, in some cases, we thought it would probably never happen, but we didn't want people to forget the story and the history of what had happened to African Americans here on the West Coast. People think that stuff only happens down south and back east and other places, but we wanted to make sure they knew that California is just as racist as anywhere else in this country at that time. And so she offered to help us get the land back, which we did, work on getting it back. But first, a bill had to be passed in order to get rid of some covenants that they had put on the deed to the land, not allowing it to go back to blacks, or to, well, not necessarily that, but not allowing it to be used for other than public purposes. In other words, they gave it back to us, they'd be giving it back to a private party. But this is county land and they can't do that. So a bill had to be passed through the state legislature, which was unanimously voted and passed by all walks of life, in Republican, Democrat, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. It was unanimously supported. And so once the bill was passed, and we thought, well, hey, great, we're ready to go now. We're going to get the deed and move on. Well, no, that it didn't happen that way. What happened was, after the bill was passed, we decided that, it was decided by some crazy attorney here that giving us the land was going to personally injure him. So he decided to take us to court and sue the city of the state of the county of Los Angeles to prevent them from passing the land on to us. It took a few months, and eventually we did win that particular case. Then there was also the issue of genealogy. You yourself is studying genealogy, and I am too, and I am a genealogist. And so in the course of trying to get the land transferred to us, we had all of these people who claimed to be the heirs of this property. Now, in my genealogical research, I knew and had told people all over the place, there are only 4 heirs to this property: Anthony Bruce, the great-great-grandson, his brother Michael Bruce, another great-great-grandson, and the 2 great-grandsons, Derek and Marcus. That's it. There was nobody else. But 112 people, including some of my own immediate family, decided that they were going to say that they were heirs to the land and try and get a piece of the action. So we had to wait for the vetting process of all of those various people, and then they had to submit an application. It was reviewed, and then they had to appeal. So we had to wait through that. So that pushed us back again. And then once that was all vetted out and we knew that this again were the only heirs, then we had to go through the process of negotiating with the county, the transfer of the land, what the value of the land was, what are going to be the terms of the transfer, what will happen once the land is transferred and we are the landowners.
Wow. And this whole process from the lawsuit to the family vetting, that took another additional year or two?
2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we started this process in 2020, around the time that Brother George Floyd was murdered. Yes. But I've been researching this since about 2016. I actually was there with my family at the family reunion in 2018 at Bruce's Beach and declared it a sacred land and told everybody there that I was going to do everything I could to get that land repatriated to our family. Everybody thought I was crazy, of course,
right.
Including my own family members. They said, this old man lost his mind. No, right. Seriously, and they all kind of sheepishly look at me like, yeah, we were kind of wrong on that, weren't we, Chief? Right. So I declared it in 2018, and then when George Floyd was murdered, a young lady named Kavon Ward and an organization that she was a part of called the Anti-Racist Movement in the South Bay had a Juneteenth celebration, or celebration, I guess you would say, small celebration there, took some pictures and raised the issue of Bruce's Beach again to the media. The media picked it up. She put me in contact with some people that were reaching out to her. And from there, we moved forward to trying to get the land back. So now, after all of these negotiations, everything is done, all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and the family gets the deed back on Wednesday. And they will now be landowners rather than landless victims. Wow.
So Brian Isom, our co-host, is here, and I'm sure he has incredible questions for you. I am just so fascinated because this is a lot of this we did not even hear in the media, the story that you're telling. This is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, well, this was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that was going on. We really couldn't talk about a lot of it. Hopefully I'm going to do a book so that we have a blueprint for other people to be able to do what we did and how we did it. And so, we had to tread very carefully. We didn't want to step on toes. Even though unanimously the state of California and the residents of the state of California did vote for us to get this land back, there were others that were working behind the scenes, and we know full well didn't want that to happen. And that meant people of color as well. So
yes, that is something else.
Yeah, so I had to be very strategic in how I moved and who I allowed to work with us on our journey here to victory.
Yes. Wow. Brian, do you have any questions for Chief Duane? Because I definitely want to get into your your Aboriginal tribal roots as
Mm.
well. But
Oh,
I don't want to hog the the
oh,
time
no,
here. But
no, go,
Brian,
no,
yes, definitely. But ask your question. I know you had some questions too.
yeah, no, go ahead. That's what I was gonna. That's the first question I was gonna leave with. I'll let you go ahead. Um,
Yes, please share with us your tribal history. We'd love to hear about that.
Well, on the Bruce side of the family, we are Choctaw Indians. We are actually descendants of Choctaw slaves that warriors and family members who were taken hostage in the war between the Choctaws and the Chickasaws when they decided to fight over who was going to negotiate with the white man or not negotiate. So the Chickasaws broke off into part of them as Choctaws. So they're actually cousins. And so in the course of those fights, a couple of our family members were sold into slavery. And that's how they ended up on the Bruce plantations down in Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. There were five, and then also one in Texas as well. We finally landed in Texas in the 1862 or something like that, when they started hiding slaves out from the Civil War so that they would not be taken. And so we're actually one of the original families or original plantations that found out that we were freed on Juneteenth. And so, therefore, we're Mississippi Choctaw slaves. On my father's side of the family, I'm a Pocasset Wampanoag Indian, Pocasset Wampanoag tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. I'm the 10th generation, and I shouldn't say Indian, I say indigenous. I was looking at something incorrect. I'm sorry. We're indigenous Aboriginal people. I am the 10th generation great grandson of Massasoit, Osamequin, which Osamequin means yellow feather. He was the great man who met the Pilgrims at Plymouth in 1620. He was also the one who allowed the Pilgrims to come and stay here as friends for the 40 years that they did without being under attack by our tribe. There were many other tribes in the area, of course, the Mohican and the Mohawk and other tribes that did not want the settlers there. And so we had a pact with the settlers because we had enemies amongst our own tribes as well. So the pact was that if anyone attacked them, they would defend us. And if anybody attacked us, we would, if anybody attacked them, let me get that together. Anybody attacked them, we would defend them. And if anybody attacked us, they would defend us. And that's really how the first Thanksgiving came about. Because in the course of them celebrating a massacre of our people, of people of another tribe, they came back to Plymouth, to their fort that they had built. And they were shooting off their guns, firing their guns and celebrating. And so our tribe, which was quite a few miles away, heard these gunshots, ran to their defense, thinking that they were being attacked as a part of our agreement. Little to find out that they were just celebrating that they had massacred another tribe. And so once we were there, they had a feast there in celebration of what they had done. And unfortunately, we were participants there at that particular Thanksgiving. They were low on food, and so we gave them food from our stores, from our storage bins. And that's how the first Thanksgiving actually came out. We were not eaten, as some people were saying that they ate the Indians. No, they didn't eat us. And essentially, that was the story of the first Thanksgiving. So in the course of me growing up, my great-grandmother and my grandmother on my father's side, my great-grandmother encouraged me to research the Cherokee and Choctaw side of the family. That's the Bruce side. On my father's side, my grandmother was encouraging me to do the research. She wanted to repatriate the family back to our reservation. We had the first reservation in the history of this country. It's called the Watuppa Pond Reservation. It's in Fall River, Massachusetts. That's where my grandmother grew up, and her family before her. And because there was no means of survival there on that reservation, at some point during the course of the 1800s, I would think, they did leave there and move to Providence, Rhode Island. We still have the reservation. We still have a tribal council there, of which I am on the tribal council. And the tribal council is made up of several clans. clans are like families of the tribe. And so we rule by one member from each clan sitting on the council, and that council runs everything that goes on with the reservation. My grandmother, being 103 when she passed away back in 2013, was the oldest living Wampanoag Indian. And after her passing, I was asked to visit the reservation because I had actually just repatriated our family to that, or contacted the tribe and let them know who we were. And they had been looking for us because people were trying to take the land. They had no actual real heir to the land that they had, that they could contact. And it just so happens, by God's grace, I was searching around and found them and reached out to them. They got back to me immediately. And so about 2 weeks before my grandmother passed, we were able to get repatriated back to the tribe. After her passing, I was asked to come to the reservation to visit at a powwow. When I got there, they made me chief. And I said, well, chief, I don't know anything about this. You know, I've been raised culturally as an African-American. You know, I don't know anything about being a chief. And your mic is on mute again, dear LaChris.
I'm trying not to interrupt, but
That's
I'm
all
so
right.
fascinated by
Right.
this. So fascinated.
Right.
So
I can listen
fascinated
to you
too.
all day.
So they asked me to be chief. I said, well, okay, well, how long is that for? They said, for life. And I said, oh, okay. So over the course of a year or two, they found out about some of the skills I had as an actor and also as an activist, as well as my background in the Black movement. I've been in the Black movement since I was 16 years old here in South Los Angeles, and in fact, nationally, actually. And so they found that I had some skills that they could actually benefit from, and one of them was negotiating with racist white people on how to get our land back.
Wow, this is absolutely incredible. So that's a great segue into the next question. I'm sure there are many families who are trying to do this right now, they're digging in records, they're digging in archives and trying to figure out, how do I do this? Where do I start? What advice would you give them?
Well, you got to do genealogical research. You got to make sure what you're being told by family is not folklore. I would have, folklore is in the Black community is rampant. We were slaves, we was Indians, we was this, we was that, and you got to narrow down the truth in the family. And it may hurt some people's feelings. I hurt a lot of people's feelings. They always thought we were Cherokees. They swore to God we were Cherokees. I said, no, they Choctaw Indians. And people got upset because their parents or their grandparents, great-grandparents told them we're Cherokees. I have the actual testimony from one of our family members from the Dawes rolls back in those days, where he told our history. Otherwise, I'd probably still be in a mess with these people. But so you got to get your folklore, you got to get the truth from the folklore out of there. Get your documentation. Talk to your elders. I don't care how old they are, and find out whatever they may know about the family history. And starting with your own parents, or aunts, uncles, whatever the case may be. You got to have your documentation. We need to know where we were from, what plantations we were from. You got to dig out old pictures. Sometimes our genealogy, I found my genealogy on the back of an old picture. And it was it was stuck in a frame. Thank God they didn't use them sticky stuff back in those days. And happened to pull the picture out, and it fell. And I looked back there and I said, well, whoa. And I looked up and it was a family tree on the back of that picture. So the first thing is to get together all of your documents, then decide, who's going to be the spokesman for the family. That person should be an uncompromising person, a person who is true to the mission. People get what's the word I'm looking for? They get mesmerized by the publicity, mesmerized by the thought of the money. And I had learned early in the movement, any of those things are dangerous. You don't want it you don't want to be a part of it, and you don't want it a part of anything that you're doing. And I had that issue in my fight here, but you want to try and do your best to get the best person possible who's going to stay true to the mission. And the mission is to get justice for your family. And then what you have to have is an incident. The media thrives off of controversy. No controversy, no media. You're going to have to go to whoever it is that has your land and demand that land back. And if they're white, you can be guaranteed they're going to tell you to go to hell.
Absolutely.
They tell you to go to hell. You have a camera there, and a news crew on the steps of that city hall or county hall or the state legislature, and then boom.
It sounds like this is an amazing, like, you need tenacity, like deep tenacity, right?
Tenacity. You need a lot of patience. And see, look, it's like this. Nobody ever won the Super Bowl with 55 rookies. You have to have somebody, a coach, who can look at all your rookies and say, okay, this one has the skills to do this. This one has the skills to do that. This one doesn't have any skill at all. I want him out of here. This one is a troublemaker. I want him out of here. And you put together that Super Bowl, that winning team that's going to take you to the Super Bowl. Okay, and this is our problem right now. Our young people don't want centralized leadership. But you have to understand, the one thing America has feared all this time is centralized leadership. That's why they took out Malcolm. That's why they took out Martin. That's why they took out Medgar. That's why they took out Huey and Eldridge and all the rest of the brothers and the other brother in Chicago. I forget his name right now. You know who I'm talking
Fred
about.
Hampton.
Fred Hampton. Yeah, Fred Hampton. Because these were charismatic leaders who could get people to rally around them, and people trusted their leadership, and they could get things done. Okay, and that's not what America wants. But our young people now are claiming that, centralized leadership, we don't need that. We can do stuff spontaneously around the country and be just as effective. And that's not correct. Not correct at all. So as the coach, I had to decide, who we could use, who we couldn't. We had a lot of people coming in offering us help to manage the money when we got it, which we hadn't gotten any money yet. Legal people that were legal advisors that wanted to take up the legal fight for us. And I had to be careful. I didn't know who these people were or what their intentions are. So there's a lot that, yes, had to be done. And you got to be very tenacious, very, very patient, and knowledgeable of what you're doing. You can't go out here calling yourself a leader and you ain't never followed nobody.
That's true.
And so that's what happened, is that they needed some leadership that was tested. And so they asked me to step up and do it, and sometimes I questioned whether I was going to be able to actually succeed at it myself. But I knew one thing, God told me, step up, step up. And if you take care of mine, I'll take care of you. And
beautiful. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Brian, do you have any questions? I mean, this is, I want to say that we will definitely be talking more.
I'm just.
Brian, you're cutting out just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that.
Brian, I think
I'm cutting out. Yeah,
yes,
I'm not in the best area. I pulled over. Excuse my, my poor signal. Okay, I apologize. I'm in the best area for good signal. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm learning from the whole story because we just had this yesterday with my family about I live in Alabama in the Indian territory, and so I've heard hearsay that we had Indian in our families, and trying to find records and trying to get concrete information about to solidify that these stories. And so I'm just listening and learning because, we just talked about this yesterday. So I'm listening and I'm learning, and I salute you for taking the initiative to step up and to stand up to these people who took your ancestors' land. I applaud you for that.
Well, the greatest thing that a chief can do is fight for his people, even if it means his death. And I'm a true chief. I didn't do it for money. I did it for the right to stand up and show our children what you do when you when racists attack you. You don't go high when they go low. You stand toe to toe. That's the only way to fight a racist. Okay, and I'm saying that, and I don't want people to think that I'm disparaging anything that someone has said in the past. This is just the truth. Okay, you don't fight a bully trying to love him. Okay, you can't love him until you beat his behind. Okay, then he'll want to say, then he'll want to have some dialogue with you. And you can't negotiate with racists. Those people are mentally ill. Okay, there's no negotiations with a racist. Someone who thinks that another human being is lower than they are is mentally ill.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so trying to talk or reason with someone that's mentally ill that hasn't got help is futile. The only way to fight racism, only way to deal with racism is to fight it straight on.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. Wow. Wow. What a fascinating, fascinating story. We are so happy. I mean, there's more that I wish I could say because this is a public forum, but man, I'm so appreciative of you and all of your passion, your commitment. Thank you so much. You are such a walking example of what we need right now because as you know, this man, we need leaders because the leaders, boy, I don't know where they are, but it's
it's like Gil Scott said, you know, all the heroes have been killed and betrayed. Yes. And we don't know that it's winter in America. That's okay. Right. I'm telling you, I'm almost alone out here. You know, a lot of my brothers that, you know, that mentored me are gone, you know, but they left me here to get the job done, you know, and, you know, I'm picking up on where Malcolm said, you know, that the basis of all revolution is the landless against the landlord, you know, and we went up there against that landlord and we got our land back. And I'm saying it's not impossible, but sitting around on your butt crying and whining and waiting for this politician and that politician, I don't care what color they are, they're all going to sell you out. You know, this is supposed to be about your freedom, about your self-determination, you know, and land is the way to get that self-determination, your own reservation. My reservation is sovereign. I'm not under the jurisdiction of the United States. We're not Native Americans, as the Cherokee and all these other people are called. We are a sovereign nation.
That's right.
Okay? I live on that land when I want to, tax-free. Okay.
There you go.
And that's the way it's supposed to be. And African Americans in this country, they need their own reservations now. We need to move away from these people. This is what the revolution was all about. They don't even call it a revolution anymore. They want to say that the black movement was a part of the civil rights movement. Okay.
I totally agree because at some point you have to say, what are you going to do?
Right.
And how many decades needs to go by before you recognize that you have to do something, and all the talking, all the marching, all the protesting is not going to get you anywhere. You have to act.
Yes.
And it's going to be a battle. You may not even see it in your lifetime, but you must do something.
Yes.
If you say you love your children and your grandchildren, what are you going to do?
You're dying anyway.
Exactly.
You bleed.
Exactly.
You walk up to your car, they pull a gun. Somebody pulled a gun on you on your street, what would you do?
Absolutely.
But you got some person that walks up to your car with a gun and will kill you anyway.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
We don't need to live with these people. That's my opinion. Mm-hmm. I think that being away from them, if being around them antagonizes them to the point that they feel that they just must antagonize us all the time, constantly harassing us the time, finding every way that they can to make our lives miserable. Why in the hell are we still here?
You know, you make such an amazing point because I say, when we were segregated, they still came after us.
Yes.
They still bothered you.
That's right.
And you were minding your business, doing your own thing. You had your own.
That's what
still came.
That's what happened to Charles and Willa Bruce. They had their own thing. They were minding their own business.
Right. You don't want us. Okay, we'll go over here.
No matter where we go, they got to find us. That's why all these other cities have gone through urban renewal and whatever. They're putting freeways through the middle of the cities and whatever, because that's their MO. They find it necessary to harass us wherever we go. And the only way to stop being harassed is to turn the tide. Now, that's what happened in the Black movement. When we started, and excuse me for saying it, but I got to tell you the truth, in the Black movement, we started slapping these white kids upside the head, and busting and knocking their mamas down at the market and stuff like that there, okay? It turned the tide. We started getting all kind of rights, okay? All the rights that they're taking away from you now, You know, that's because we fought for them back in the 60s, and we wasn't talking about we shall overcome. Those of us got those rights, okay? We didn't have to pass legislation for us to wear a natural hairstyle back in those days. They said, you have whatever you want, just stop hitting me and my mama upside the head.
That's right.
Police pulled you over, people were jumping out of their cars and firing at them. Okay. If you look at those pictures during the riot, and I'm gonna get off that subject, look at those pictures during the riot. If you see all the cops, they're all outside behind their doors in these cars, right? Every city. The guns are pointed up, okay? Not straight ahead at the people that protesting on the ground. The guns are pointed up. Guess why? Because that means somebody was shooting down at them. And that's how we got our rights. Yeah. Okay, now I don't know how you all gonna get yours, but hopefully we're a good example. I think that they found that they may want to start negotiating, that we're a good precedent right here, because this is the first time this has happened for African Americans in this country, that they may want to start to negotiate. Because eventually you keep backing a rat in the corner, he gonna strike back. And they know this. They know us.
Absolutely. You know, and this is where the discussion happens, because you have to start somewhere. Yes. And with you being the example, man, and this is what we want to continue doing. We want to continue having these conversations. Good. And getting people knowledgeable, because that's half of it. A lot of us have been blinded. We don't have the information. We've been indoctrinated. We've been educated, you know, all kinds of crazy ways that have nothing to do with our history. And I should say there's been a bit of a rewriting of our history, kind of to detract us from what really is. Right. And so that's the goal here.
That's our fault. We're supposed to keep the truth out there. We know the truth. Mm-hmm. You know, Malcolm was telling the truth. All the other brothers were telling the truth. We're supposed to keep the truth out there. We got scared. Once they shot them, then, wow, I guess I'm going to be next. And so, we got scared. And that's why we're in the position we are in now, because of cowardice, because now our babies are about to take on a nuclear bomb with what do you call it, an AK-47, okay, because we didn't do anything about it. We didn't maintain our momentum. We did not maintain our focus on self-determination for our people and land for our people.
Yep. Wow. Chief Duane.
Chief, I want to ask this last question. I don't know if I'm choppy or not, because I'm in a bad area and it's been raining here in Alabama. If you could explain the process of finding your Indian heritage, I know you said that, asking relatives, finding as much documents as you can, but how do you get how would one person get in contact with maybe their ancestral Indian heritage?
The first problem you're going to have is that we don't have a written language. So there are no written records from all of the reservations. Everything is handed down by the word of mouth. And so somebody in your family should have gotten that from them. The other only recourse that you have is the congressional rolls, where they were taking a census of the various Indian tribes at that time, of the indigenous tribes at that time. And the most important one probably down in Alabama, because we're talking in the Algonquin people. Those are all cousins of mine. Everybody east of the Mississippi were of the Algonquin race, from Canada down to Florida. And they did the Dawes rolls, DAWES rolls, congressional rolls. And that was of the 5 civilized tribes, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the other ones escape me right quick, but it's 5 civilized tribes. That was the most recent roll. It was done like in 1902. In that roll, everyone that was indigenous who felt that they had a right to land being given back to them went and gave testimony as to who they are, to prove that they were actually indigenous people and had rights to these lands. That testimony is available to you if you can find the name of your ancestor that gave that testimony.
Great stuff. And
Got
we're definitely
Your entire indigenous history is sitting there waiting for you to find.
Wow, it's never been lost. It just needs to be found.
Right, and it's always been by word of mouth. People are looking for documents from the indigenous people. We didn't have. I mean, that shows you don't know nothing about us. We never had a written language. It was all by oral storytelling and things of that nature. Everything was oral.
Right.
Amazing.
And that's what I was saying yesterday to my family as we had our family reunion, talking about this same exact information, getting in contact with the elders and making sure that they don't die that they don't die with this information. This is data. This is data that they will be leaving with.
Get you a tape recorder like this, turn it on, and let them talk. You got to do it. If you don't, you have nobody but yourself to kick in the butt because you didn't get it.
This is testimony that I should be doing my due diligence, being following your example, and starting my own.
There should be one in every family that is designated to get this job done. Okay, no family should be running around here and there's nobody that's designated to maintain the history of your family and also provide a road to the future, a plan for the future. Okay. People are here, but nobody's planning for the future. What's the plan to take care of your babies when these people start attacking? Where are you going? People run around here talking about, well, I don't want no gun in my house. Well, they got guns in their houses.
Sure do.
In fact, 21 guns per white person.
That's deep. And from the way things are looking, they're trying to take the regular guns from folks.
Oh, yeah, but they've been doing that.
That's another discussion. Discussion.
Well, the first gun control law was in 1967 after the Panthers walked into the state legislature. Then they passed the gun control law. There was no gun control laws until that happened. So it was all about black people in the first place.
Yeah, my mother told me about that. She sure did. Mm-hmm. Wow. Oh my goodness, we could talk all day.
Yeah, we could.
Chief, Chief, you kicked a lot of knowledge, and I'm glad you took the step, you took the initiative to just step up and be the spokesperson for your family and get this Bruce's Beach back. And I can't wait for Wednesday to come. And this is not a victory for your family; it's a victory for all families who have been stripped of their lands by racist, bigoted, humans who had jealous and envy in their heart. I salute you times 10, and this is lighting a fire in me to be the chief of my tribe, of my family here in Alabama, as I'm on this whole area that I live in is all Indian territory. And all the names of the city that I live in is all Indian territory. Yeah. I just got to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yep. That's all indigenous territory. And like I always say to my people, power to the right people.
That's right. Yeah. Power to the right people.
That's right. Wow. Chief Duane, it's been a pleasure. I mean, beyond. And we definitely would love to have you back. We want to learn so much from you. There's so much to learn.
I'll be glad to come back, and I'm honored that you all would have me.
Absolutely.
And I want to say something to you young people out there, all of you that were out there in those demonstrations or whatever the past few years. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief, so much.
Your voice, you have a powerful voice, and thank you for your voice, and again, it's empowering all of us to go out and be chiefs and leaders of our own tribes.
Oh, and let me get this one little plug in. Starting in 2023, I'll be doing a one-man show. I did it for 30 years, a one-man show on the life of Malcolm X, and they're asking me to revive that show. So we'll be opening here in Los Angeles in 2023, and we'll be going on world tour.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
We definitely need to be talking
Malcolm
about
comes
that.
back 97 years old and tells you about what he sees now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Wow. I cannot wait for that. Wow. Again, thank you, Chief Duane. We are so appreciative of you. You have no idea.
It is my honor and my duty, and I'm available anytime you need.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. We'll be talking to you so soon.
Oh, blood to blood.
Oh, blood to blood.
Blood to blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.